Hey everybody, and welcome to the Diabetes Empowerment Summit. I am your co-host and founder of the summit and the founder of Diabetes Dominator Coaching and Love Yourself to Health monthly coaching membership. I am again just so grateful to bring you an amazing global representative in our diabetes community. I'm going to read you a very small bit of her bio, and then we're just actually going to talk right to her to get all the good details. So Apoorva Gomber is a medical doctor from Delhi, India. She's been living with type 1 diabetes for over 12 years and is passionate about fighting against the stigma and stereotypes associated living with chronic diseases. She is keen to work in the field of public health and diabetes epidemiology, and she will be pursuing her MPH from Harvard University this year. She has been a global patient advocate and passionate to work in the global health realm. So Apoorva, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to come and chat with me and share your wisdom with our audience. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me here. It's such a privilege. Like, I read your book 3 years back. I got hold of your book 3 years back, and like, it's such a privilege to now be with you on Zoom. I like, we were living in a virtual world, but then it's so nice to, I'm looking forward to meeting you soon.
Yeah. Yes, and if you're coming here to the United States, and I'll pray for all of the COVID stuff to allow that to happen with visas, but I hope that we will actually get to meet in person. Actually, I'm sure that we will at some point, so yes. So you've been living with diabetes for 12 years, and kind of talk about, I kind of wanted to touch on your diagnosis a little bit, but in a little bit of a different way, because you told me in your bio that your dad is as a diabetologist, and so that he was kind of the one who diagnosed it. So how did that go down? That must be such an interesting story, because you had a doctor as your father who was able to kind of bring you forth into this new world. How was that for you?
So, like, rewinding back to those 12 years back, I think the day, like, I was in school when I was having all the symptoms of, like, I was losing weight, I was eating a lot. Like, my mom thought, like, I'm a teenager and just being, like, really cranky and eating all the junk food and still not gaining weight. I was 16, and gradually, so my mom's a gynecologist. I was having a lot of UTI infections. So my mom thought that it could be because of, like, she's not keeping her hygiene well and all those factors. And I was studying that time, so I had the pressure of studies as well. So and there were complaints from my school also with those symptoms that I actually fall asleep in the classroom, because I had such loss of like, there was lots of fatigue and a lot of issues which were coming, but we were just ignoring all this while. My mom said, okay, she must be just making excuses. It's just happening anyways. So one fine day, I think it was January 4th, when my dad it was a Sunday basically, and on Sunday, my dad is a diabetologist, so he holds free blood sugar camps for people living with diabetes in India. And he said, Apoorva, why don't you come to the clinic and just get your blood sugars tested? So this was never expected out of anyone. And I was ignoring, and my mom was like, just go. So I didn't go. I was ignoring it. And my dad just got the glucometer at home. He said, okay, I'll check it here. Just for our own consideration, you just check it. And when he checked my blood sugars, the meter said high. And it didn't get it just said high. So my dad thought it could be because she must have eaten something, or something must have been on her hand.
Yeah.
So he said, Apoorva, go wash your hands and come back. I was like, what are you doing? I was just acting cranky. And then he checked it again. Again, the meter said high. And then he kind of like freaked out. He asked for another meter from the clinic. And that's when the meter said something like 565. And he said that this is something an issue. And that was the first time my dad was like so shaken. He said, this is something I'm running away from. Like, this is something like I treat every day, and I've been running away from it, that this should not happen in my family, and I never catch hold of these symptoms which were all there all this while. And that was just a hint, but he wanted to confirm. So he sent my lab report that very morning. I think it was 9 in the morning, and it was sent to the lab by afternoon. I think we got the report. My HbA1cs were 16.4, and my random blood sugar, which he checked, was 765. And that's when I saw like my dad literally like crying for the first time ever. And I was like, okay, what just happened? Like I was just acting very nice. Like I was like, nothing happened. Like I'm okay, absolutely all right. And it was weird because my mom's a gynecologist, and then there just like two doctors have a fight between each other. It was like a conflict between my mom and dad. I told you this was happening. I told you never picked it up. Blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, I'm freaking out. And that's when they took me to the hospital and they got me admitted. So my dad wasn't really open about sharing with his colleagues that the daughter got type 1 diabetes, or like because he wanted to confirm. And like they just were not really open about sharing with people. And so I was taken to the ICU, but I was told not to tell anybody that I am Dr. Gomber's daughter. So it was like that. Weird,
Wow.
but yes, that was happening because I think somewhere in India there is some kind of a stigma attached to any chronic disease. And probably even if I tell like I'm from an educated family with people who are doctors, who are in the profession, there was some kind of stigma where my dad wasn't really open about sharing this with his friends or his colleagues, because diabetes is somehow considered to be something negative a person has to live with. So I think for a very long time I never shared it with people that I have diabetes, because a female living with type 1 diabetes and my dad purposely telling me not to tell it to people, I could sense there was some stigma behind that. As a female, he was scared that if I tell it to people, she will not be accepted by the society. She will not have a normal life, and she will probably there will be nobody to accept her for the so-called marriage. So all those stigma was there. So all this while there was time, like initial time I was put on insulin, I was like everything was happening. I was also considered to be, probably because I was just 14, 15. So they also started me on like thinking about type 2 diabetes, because there is not much awareness about type 1 in India. Now the situations have been different, but back then there wasn't really much awareness. And I was also started on oral medications. But when my reports came, my antibodies test came, everything got cleared, and then he was also sure that yes, she has type 1 diabetes and now she has to be on insulin. I don't think I was really shaken up by the whole thing, probably because I was always more like a resilient person.
Yes.
I don't know why, maybe I was always like that. And being the eldest in my family, I think that was one character which I think I've been different from my siblings. So I wasn't really shaken, but yes, there were times after like 6, 7 years when I went to college, medical school. I was applying for medical school. And when I joined medical school, I had a tough time because my colleagues started making mockery out of me. There were like, I was in the hostel where people said, oh, I think she does drugs because she has pens in her room, like some kind of injections in her room. So those were children of my age, but they were the prospective doctors of the country. So there was such lack of awareness about it.
Wow.
So yes, there was a time when I also revolted. I don't want to do this. And there were so many fluctuations in my blood sugars that I think everybody goes through that phase of denial. Okay, I
Yeah.
don't have it, and I would not just like, I don't want to do this. I really don't want to take care of my health. I think I'm okay. So I think it does impact you emotionally, and I think I had all the phases of denial and anger and bargaining. And then finally, when I accepted my disease, I think it was probably when I started seeing patients myself, which was around the final year of medical school. Because I was reading about complications and everything, and I was like, Apoorva, this is a jolt. You need to take
Yes.
care.
Yes.
And that's when, because it was hard managing blood sugars when you don't have a right support system, and when you don't have like people who could understand you. That's when I realized that I need to like really take care of myself. And in my final year of medical school, I had a very supportive friend who actually understood my condition, and we together worked out. I went on a salad diet and all that, And for the first time, I got my HbA1c as 6, and I was like, okay, now I can change it.
Wow.
That was like a biggest motivation for me to bring a change in my life. And with that, I think the journey of inspiring others started. And I thought things which I didn't get during my diagnosis, I should share it with the world.
Yes.
The real support system which I never had, and it took me so long to finally accept my disease or the condition which will be lifelong for me. I would want to not. I would not want anybody else, like maybe a child, never to go through what phases I went through.
Totally understand. Yeah, that was my motivation too. When I spent many years in my whole teenage life, HbA1c above 10, 12%. And when I started figuring things out for myself, I thought I should probably tell other people this, because it took me like 15 years to figure this out. So I wanted to shorten that kind of learning curve. And you shared so much really what I think is very important information about acceptance, because I find that acceptance as a state of mind, as a value, is one of the most important mental and emotional kind of tools that we have to use to live with our disease. And so I feel like you had an exceptional challenge, even though you may not have seen it as such at the time, with your father being someone who treats people with diabetes and then telling you to hide it. Has it come to a point now? Well, obviously you're a global patient ambassador and you're a doctor, so clearly that has switched a total 180 and you're out here kind of expressing yourself fully. But was there, in that transitional time, was there a time where you and your dad had to sit down and talk about, hey, you're going to start telling people, or did you kind of just come to that? How did that transition, and how is he about it now, just out of curiosity? Because our parents, have a lot of influence on us. I think we all know that.
Yeah. So I think initially when my dad was like, so I never could understand why they don't want to tell it to people. So probably they were really protective about me, and that's one of the reasons why Indian families are protective about their children. And being the eldest in the family, there was some kind of like, Apoorva wants to do this and that, and she shouldn't be limited just because people and how the society is going to judge her. So I think that's one of the reasons why they had this protective approach. But I couldn't understand at that time.
Of course.
Right? And I was revolting. Like anything. I used to have fights with him, and I used to say, whatever you guys want to do, just do it. I will just tell the world. And, that's when initially I was also scared of telling it to people. But that's when I started a social media account in the name of T1D Fighter, where I didn't really post my pictures, like not my face, but a little about my journey, that, okay, these are my numbers, these are like that, and started connecting with people through social media. And when I saw it's not just me, there are so many people who are living with this. And there's so many people who have gone through the similar struggles as me. And it's time that being an educated person, it's my responsibility that I should just let out now. I should let out. And that's when I think it was in final year medical school only, that when I sat with my dad and I said that, see, like this is, if I don't share it with people, it will choke me from inside. Yes. And as an educated person, it's our duty, irrespective of how society is going to judge us, it's our duty to give it back to the world and change the situation. Because in India, lots of children, lots of people are dying because they are not able to share it with someone. And they are just feeling afraid to share it with someone. And that's one of the reasons why, because of the stigma, which is one of the biggest challenge in diabetes management. People are not going to their doctors. They're not sharing with their peer support. They're not joining support groups. And then they're ignorant. And they're ignorant, and hence they'll end up in complications. So as a person, let me do what I want to and just have faith in me. I'm not going to go against you. So I think that's when a bond really developed between the two of us. He's not still very open about it, but then when he saw that she's now out of my hands, I can't do anything, let her go.
Beautiful. And I love that. And I think kind of what you're talking about is, peer support. The first time we did this summit in 2016, the whole theme was around peer support, because I had, after interviewing by that point hundreds of people with diabetes, I found this underlying thread of people who are doing fairly well managing their diabetes, or thriving even, and I found this connective thread, which was they found a community. They joined, like you said, support groups on social media, or they, meetup groups or whatever it was. They They commiserated with other people who fully understood it, which I think is one of the most powerful ways that we have to, again, with the mental and emotional management of our disease, but that mental and emotional management spills over into the physical management. So when we have that support and we have that ability to empathize directly with other human beings, it really just, there's, you know, we could talk about it all day during this interview, but until the person that may be watching this that's kind of still on the fence actually kind of dips your toe in, it's very difficult to actually put into words the feeling of just like acceptance and just like, okay, this is not, I'm not alone. And what you said, I wanted to say is authenticity, because what you said was what I thought was so perfect, the way you verbalized it, was that if you didn't express your truth, it would choke you from the inside. When you said that, like, I got chills on my arms, because that is kind of the crux of everything I teach. You must be authentically who you are in order to feel better, because I'm always trying to help people just feel better, right? Not be perfect, but you're never going to feel better if you don't feel like you can talk about all parts of yourself. So I just want to honor you for doing that in a place where it's even more difficult to do it in your situation, in a country where you said the parents are very protective and females are kind of looked at differently and all of that. So it's just really inspiring. I hope other people watching are feeling that inspiration. Absolutely.
I think I'm one among those people. There are so many females who have like really purposely like they've not shared it with their families. There are, because of the fear that they will not get married and they won't fit into the near normal which the society has really tagged along. But everybody has to be vulnerable to the person, like they have to be there vulnerable to be true to themselves, because when you start loving yourself, I think then you become true to the entire world.
Absolutely. And that's why, I mean, not too much plugging, but I mean, that's why I started a group 2 years ago with my group coaching program. It's called Love Yourself to Health. A lot of people in there have diabetes and some people don't. The whole point is to actually practice self-love daily and start to understand what that actually looks like. It's not just this ethereal term. It's actually a physical practice, and it goes back and forth. So it's just like you said, when you start to love yourself, I find that if you have kind of disordered eating, which I did, it begins to start working itself out. And if you have disordered exercise relationship, it begins when you start working on loving yourself, other things just start to fall into place. And so the other thing I wanted to mention, we talk a lot about self-care and self-love, and I saw in your bio, you do things that I would consider, you know, self-care and bringing yourself in a good mental and emotional state, because a lot of times I say that managing diabetes is kind of 20% medical and 80% mental. So what are kind of some of the things that you do daily or at least part of your diabetes self-care routine that really, you know, contribute to getting, you know, better blood sugars? And it's not just physical, you know, checking the blood sugar stuff, but it's things outside of that kind of for your mind and your spirit. So what is Apoorva's kind of go-to?
So, you know, as you rightly said, there is no one, like I'm really a strong believer of something called no one size fits all. So I think, a lot of people really compare when it comes to diabetes management. Oh, she got an HbA1c of 6, and they really tag you with a number on your face. Like, okay, if she's 6, she's well controlled. She has an absolutely perfect life. But they don't really understand everybody has ups and downs. Like it cannot be a straight line. And there are ups and downs on any journey, be it like diabetes or be it any other chronic disease. So I think with diabetes, I as a medical professional also, I feel like it's not just like of insulin and blood sugars. There is a lot of holistic management which needs to go when it comes to diabetes care, and it is so individualized. Like even if I make a plan for a particular person and try to give it to the other person, it's very possible that the two people will behave in a very different way. So that's what diabetes is. It has to be, as you said, 80% mental. A person has to be resilient enough to start being proactive for his or her disease or his or her own condition. So for me, I think I was in search for that 80% mental resilience on what would work for me. I was finding out my own individualized an approach of how diabetes will work for me. So I went on salad diets. I started shifting a lot of diets. I started reading the books and trying to implement it with myself. So I was trying to be a guinea pig for myself and experimenting, trying to find out what really works for me. I went on keto diet, low carb diets, whatnot. Like you name it and I've done it. And you know, I was never an athlete in school. I was more of a studious person. So sports was never a thing in my life. So I gradually built up something like, I think diabetes really motivated me to start running. Like, I don't know, maybe that was one of the reasons I thought that could be because I would become more insulin sensitive. So I should start doing some physical activity. That's when my journey of running started. And I think it was 2018 when I ran the New York City Marathon, just with this hope that I would run with Beyond Type 1, the team I really dream of running with. And a person who has never ran a 5 kilometers or a 10 kilometers ran a 42.2 kilometers, like 26.2 miles. And sorry about that.
Oh, so cute. That's okay. Oh, I mean, who doesn't love that? That's all good.
So I ran, and that actually changed my whole perception that when you want to stretch yourself, you can actually see that you are worth it. Like you can really, there's nothing which is not, we limit ourselves. I can't do this, I can't do that. But I feel that if you have that will, if you have that resilience to bring a change in your life, you can definitely get it. Like it will take a lot of effort. It will take time, its own sweet time. Don't compare it with people, but you will reach there. Like I could never ever believe I would be that person who ran a marathon in my life where nobody in my family actually runs. So imagine that was something I did. And then I started doing yoga. So yoga was more of like just making myself at peace, where I wanted to release the stress of the hospital, the studies, the medical school and everything. And it wasn't like I was doing it every day, but it was more of like just being me. It was more of my self time. These were some of the things which I started doing, and probably it really helped manage my blood sugars as well. So it was diet, it was exercise, it was also mental peace. I think these are just three main pillars, but there are all other factors which make a huge difference in your diabetes, and everything works for you. Like probably some people just like just going for a walk and it would just work, and some people just want to talk to their best friend and the blood sugar is going to be perfect. So it's your own find. So find your thing and just do it for yourself and not for anybody else.
Yeah. And oh my goodness, I wish I could like have this snapshot. You said so many good things that I want to touch on, but I think at the top of it is what I think something we both agree on very wholeheartedly, which is there is no one size fits all for any type of diabetes. And I want to be clear, not type 1, not type 1.5, not type 2. There's no, you can't just read one book and say, oh, well, this is the only way that you can manage diabetes well. Because when we do that mental side, because we can't all fit in this one box. So then when the person trying it doesn't feel joyful, or it doesn't feel like it fits us, then we start thinking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I have these same results as X, Y, or Z? Because we're directly comparing and trying to shove ourselves into this mold. And what you said about self-experimentation is kind of the my ethos of my whole life is like, empowerment is experimentation on yourself, and knowing that that's a blessing that we get to do. It's not really, for me, it's not a burden, because it puts me deeper in touch with myself. And that's why the summit is here, to encourage people like, look, take some time to explore your own joy. Find, if walking brings you joy, just walking slowly in nature, then that's great exercise. Don't try to shove yourself into somebody else's mold, because that's actually going to feel, that whole choking thing is going to come up again. And I think that's so important that you mentioned that. And I'm so glad that you're out here advocating for this. Young people today and just need to hear this as much as possible. Authenticity, be yourself, experiment, give yourself the room to grow. Because like you said, the time's going to pass anyway. So you might as well. And the other thing I wanted to say, you said, is that people say, I can't do this, I can't do this. Can't is one of my least favorite words. And I always challenge clients and everyone watching. Next time you say can't, ask yourself the question, is it can't or is it won't? Because you'll find that 99.9% of the time, it's a won't. Like if you say you can't produce insulin and you have type 1, okay, yes, I give you that. But if you say you can't run a marathon, I'm going to challenge you to say, I won't, because it's a really empowering distinction to make that I think we as human beings fall back on that word can't, and it really stunts our ability to grow. So I'm really grateful that you brought that up. So thank you so much for that. I was going to say, I don't want to cut you off. Do you have anything else to say about that? Yeah, awesome. So kind of one final thing that I just, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I think with my like in practice also, when I've been in the hospitals, I've seen a lot of people really limit themselves, saying that okay, I have diabetes, I can't have normal life, and that's one of the reasons when you start limiting yourself, you often feel that okay, I don't fit in the community. Like won't be able to do this. I won't, and that's when you start going like more into the black hole, and it kind of like takes you deep down inside, and you start ignoring your condition, and you're like, okay, I think this is it. I'm not gonna put in more effort for it, and that's when the whole issue starts. Even in like we've seen with lots of patients, a lot of kids feel that okay, I do probably ignoring my condition would really bring me more satisfaction and give me more power, and I would be absolutely normal. But however, and they don't come back to the doctor thinking that the doctor will just like be stubborn on them, and because he's just playing around with insulin and food, and things don't work that way. And like this I mentioned about no size, one size fits all. So everybody wants to fit you in a particular shape or size, but then you don't really belong there. So find your own shape or size and just be yourself. I think once you start realizing and working on that, probably you could actually make a difference for your own life. And everyone's different, and that's just value yourself. That's more important. And I always say that to people, like, if I am telling you that you can do it, the diabetes is not just about managing blood sugars. If I'm telling you, you just need to do this charting, or just like this insulin will work, probably I'm not there with you 24/7. You have to find an answer for yourself and just come back to me and just tell me. And every doctor is there to support you find that right tool for yourself. So I think we as doctors have this duty. We can't be with you for 100% time, but you are there with yourself 100%. And you just need a hand holding, and everything's going to be absolutely fine.
And I wish every doctor had the same outlook as you do. And I'm not, I've met several other doctors on this event, and I think that there are many incredible, amazing doctors. But having been coaching people for 10 years now, I've unfortunately been witness to many of my clients coming to me from doctors who do not share your perspective, and who have read, their book on diabetes that they read in medical school, and then, they're just reciting all the things that they read in that book, and my clients are coming to me out of their minds trying to figure things out, and I say, oh, well, did you try this, this, and this? Because it's an individualized approach, but a lot of doctors, well, at least here, I can only speak for my clients in America, but a lot of times I'm having people come to me where their doctors are not. So just thank you for on behalf of all of the community and your patients, because it's so.
Thank you. I think what makes a difference here probably is because when you reading a condition in a book is very easy, but when you start living it, you actually realize what that real meaning or what that symptom really means. Yeah. So basically, I think I've been privileged to get both sides, both perspective as a patient and a doctor. And I think most of the people who have type 1 diabetes and are medical professionals, they are the best doctors, because they can actually feel what a hypoglycemia feels, and they can actually make you understand what a lived experience is. Yes. So probably that really makes you grounded, and you can implement your medical knowledge much better.
Yeah, it adds a value that is just incredible and priceless, because that understood lived experience makes that connection so much more. So I could easily talk to you for I say this to all of the people I talk to because it's true. I feel like I could literally talk for hours with you guys, but in the sense of trying to keep this consumable by the folks out there watching, we're going to kind of try to bring this to a close now. So is there any other words of wisdom that you want to share, or things that you want to share? And then any links that Apoorva has given me will be directly under this video. So if you want to find out more from her, you can just literally scroll down. You're probably already seeing it, but I want to give you, open mic, anything else that you want to add, because you clearly have a lot of valuable things to say.
Yeah, so I just have one message to everybody, like for people who are living with type 1 diabetes or living with any chronic disease, don't limit yourself with just a number on your, don't be just like a stat. What you should do is, like, everyone has a story, and just hear them out. And everybody comes from a different background. I think people in India have had more struggles living with type 1 diabetes, so they have a story behind it, and just value their story, and just don't be too hard on yourself. That's what just a message to everybody.
Yeah.
Just don't be too hard and listen everyone out. Ultimately, we have to together fight this entire situation together. Like, it's about living together.
Yes, I agree, both in diabetes and global humanity in general. I could not agree more. And I can't thank you enough. And funny enough, for people watching, this is actually the first time Apoorva and I have really spoken to each other. And I'm just so grateful to have gotten to share this with you guys out there and to have had this experience myself, because it was just as enriching, hopefully, for you as it has been for me. And yeah, just thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. And for everyone out there, stay tuned and watch the rest of the interviews, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much, Apoorva.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Lovely having you.